Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube where I share with you guys kind of trade secrets about being an indoor playground owner. As you guys know, it is tax season, and I shared recently a little short on my TikTok and my YouTube about what you can write off during tax season. I shared just 3 main items, but I got a lot of questions about other things that I thought was really obvious that you could write off. So I figured I would do kind of a video of what I wrote off this year. Now, this is not tax advice. If you have a professional that does your taxes, definitely talk to them about what you can and cannot write off. This is generally just kind of a scope of the things that you can write off, but like I said, talk to your tax professional. Okay, so let's just get into it. Just as for your indoor playground, and we're gonna go section by section. First things first, are you using a car for company business? If you have a specific vehicle that you use for company business, for instance, I see other indoor playground owners doing things like they carry party supplies to and from several different play spaces. I feel like that is warranted enough for you to write off at least mileage or something like that. Keeping track of your mileage when you're doing company trips like that is very, very important. As far as communication goes, anything under communication would be like your internet bill or your phone service or even your cell phone bill if you're using that for your business purposes. Obviously, your landline is definitely one of them. Under communications, I also do my email service because I use my email to communicate with my customers and my employees a lot. So just like my email service, if I pay a monthly fee or I pay some sort of DNS hosting, I usually put that under communications as well. After that, there is assets. Now, assets could be any kind of large item that you use for your business. For instance, play equipment can be one, or just electronic stuff like that. Things that you spent over a certain amount for. Sometimes when you're paying for maybe like a $250 iPad or something like that, that necessarily doesn't have to be an asset. You can just put it in as just an expense that you paid for the year. But if you want it to be an asset, you can definitely do that. Good thing about having assets, especially if it's a high dollar amount, like for instance, your play equipment, you can write that off over several years. As time goes on, hopefully you have less and less assets that you have to add every single year, because generally speaking, the first and second year, that's when you're going to be adding most of your play equipment, and all your assets are probably going to go in those first and second years. So around the 3, 4, 5 year mark, generally speaking, you probably only have 1 or 2 assets that you might be adding as far as your playground business every year. So after that, I have just basically the general supply. Now, that was one of the questions I got in my video about like office supplies. Yes, of course, office supplies, you definitely can write that off. Anything that you're using as far as in-house to help your business, so ink, paper, pens, pencils, things like that. That's stuff that you're using every single day. Arts and crafts supplies. For us specifically, Oriental Trading, anything we buy from Oriental Trading, which basically goes towards our special events, that goes under office supplies for us or operational supplies for us. Because usually we're buying arts and crafts stuff, we're buying a lot of arts activities, things like that from Oriental Trading. I use a lot of Amazon to buy a lot of stuff for my playground, and that could be anything from like ink to like paper to like packing supplies. I use Amazon for, and Amazon's really great about like keeping track of everything that you order, obviously, and you can generate a report every single year. The best way to do this is just have an expense program or something like that, so every single time you make a purchase with Amazon or with your credit card or however you're doing it, you just enter it in right away or enter it in during the week or whatever, so that way you have it all set and ready for you. Okay, I usually will enter in my expenses, like for instance, this one is for expenses for special events, and it has a lot of like Joann's, Five Below, things like that, where I'm buying arts and crafts or like just supplies or sensory things for my playground. I have a whole expense sheet under operational supplies for party supplies. So I do buy a lot of my party supplies from Walmart and from Dollar Tree, but I also buy a lot of my party supplies from Amazon. So I will enter most of my office supplies and my stuff into a program like QuickBooks, but I actually use this program called Expensify. It's basically like QuickBooks, except it's free to use. So I like using Expensify, and then you can enter in your receipts, and I'll give you a picture of all your receipts, and that way you can just take the picture and throw it away, okay? Next one is advertising. Now, over years, advertising has become less and less for me. For instance, in your first and second year, you're probably gonna do a lot more advertising than you normally would do in your third, fourth, or fifth year. So under advertising, for me, this main year, I did my domain registration because I use my website as far as advertising goes. So like anything like that. whatever you're using as monthly expenses for your website, for your newsletter, those are advertising expenses. If you're paying to be at a market, you're paying to be at a vendor booth, that is an advertising expense. So think about things like that under your advertising. After that, I have food. Now, there's certain rules about food, right? If you're buying food for a team meeting or a company function, that is a write-off. There are some foods that are just not a write-off, like maybe your lunch. Sometimes it can be, but you can only write off like 50% of it. But like I said, you still have to talk to your tax professional. But generally speaking, if it's like a company event, a company-wide party that you're putting on for advertising or for your members or for your staff, then yes, that can be a write-off. Legal and professional fees. Now you're gonna incur a lot of this in your Indoor Playground because we do have a lot of monthly fees that we pay for every single month. So your tax professional that you're paying for right now is a legal and professional fee. So whatever fee they're charging you, you can write that off for your business, okay? Your waiver system, most of the time you're gonna have a waiver system that's gonna ask you for a monthly fee. So that's a write-off, definitely. I actually use a digital signing service for my contracts. So that yearly fee is a write-off and I printed that out. Any kind of monthly expense that you use for your business that is a service. For instance, if you're using some sort of music service, if you're paying for some sort of backup service as far as like backing up your data and things like that, yeah, definitely. Any kind of service that you're using to do legal things, maybe you hired somebody to legally, build a contract for you, things like that. That's a service that you should write off, right? Every single year we do pictures with Santa and I actually provide a gallery and that gallery costs me money every single month. All of this is going to be stuff that you guys have in your Indoor Playground. This is just stuff that I currently have. If I use it and I provide it to my customers, then I write it off. Any kind of fees that Square charged me. For instance, Square charges me not just for marketing, but it charges me to run my POS system. Every single time I add an employee or I took away an employee from my point of sale system, it charges me a monthly fee for that. So I write that fee off, okay? I had Mad Science come do a class at our Indoor Playground, so I wrote off that fee as well. Technically, Mad Science could have been considered a contractor, but I just wrote it off as a legal professional fee. General, like office supplies, not like operational supplies, but office supplies. I don't know. I feel like you can do like several things in different categories, but obviously you can only write them off one at a time. Let's say you wrote off party supplies and operational supplies. You can't do it again. I have it mostly cleaning supplies. So I do cleaning supplies and shipping services. I would ship like toys and things like that. So that was part of our shipping supply. If you don't have that service, obviously you don't put that in there. Interest. So if you have some sort of loan, you have a card that you use mainly for business. If you get a Square loan and you pay some sort of fee on that, you can write off that interest. Did you know that? It's best if you keep a credit card just for your business, so that way you can see that there's certain interest that you pay just specifically for your business. And it makes it a little bit easier to be able to input those numbers. After that is insurance. Pretty self-explanatory. You can write off of your insurance, just get your insurance binder and see what the premium is that you paid for the year. After that, it's going to be repair and maintenance. So anything you paid for as far as, repairs go, even if you did the repairs yourself, right? So even if you're just going to buy supplies to repair something in your facilities, repair something that's on the play floor, repair mechanical things, whatever it is, you can write that off, okay? Just any kind of maintenance that you do inside your unit, you can write that off. Then after that, we have utilities. Now, it really just depends on your landlord. So there's some utilities that you may pay for that I don't pay for. In my area, I pay for my electricity. So I did write off my electricity. That was the only utility besides my phone bill and my internet that I paid for in my unit. After that is the big one. The big one is actually your rent. Anything you paid for rent can be a write-off. That's gonna be your biggest expense. And you might be really surprised about the number, because I am surprised every single year when I enter that number. I'm like, oh my gosh, how did I pay this ridiculous number every single year that I was in business? It's actually kind of crazy to think about. We also had a storage unit that we had alongside our rental. Our facility was actually not big enough, and I had so much things that I needed to put into storage. And so I did write off my storage rental because that was part of my business. That was where I stored my mobile play unit, and that was where I stored all my costumes. So I did have a mobile unit that I used. After that, there's this thing called inventory. So if you have a retail area, for instance, and you are providing you're providing toys or just things that people can buy that they can take home, for instance, right? You can write off certain inventory items that you get from your retail area. So just the cost of the items, basically. So if you're buying toys, the cost of whatever the toys are. So the next area is your contractors. Now, contractors include anywhere from hiring Santa to any characters that come to your events that you pay for. Also, any kind of additional help. Let's say, for instance, you hiring a plumber and things like that. That's kind of like a contractor. I also sometimes would hire people to come and work while I was not there. They weren't employees that were in my books. It was just because I never gave them enough hours to actually be employees. So I might ask them to come like once a month, and that they might only be there once a month. I did pay them for the service, and I would enter into my Expensify account showing that, you know, I paid this person to work a certain amount of hours for me, or just to watch Imagine Play for me for 4 hours or 6 hours. Now, again, depends on your state, right? Every state's different. I did have employees on the books that I scheduled more regularly, and they were there more often, and I paid them over a certain amount of years, so they did really definitely needed to be on my book. Also speaking, every time you have employees, you also incur a cost of having employees on your payroll, and you might incur a monthly cost to have them on your payroll. That will go under legal and professional services. Last category is a miscellaneous category. So if nothing else that you do fits into any of those other categories that we spoke about, it will just go under miscellaneous. And under miscellaneous, it could be credit card processing fees. You know, that's something that we incur and that we incur a lot of. So yes, credit card processing fees can go in there. Let me see what I actually have under miscellaneous this year. I had the credit card processing fee, market research. So anything that I did that was considered market research, I wrote off as well. I think there's a spot under education too, like maybe education where you might go to a seminar or something like that. There is also a spot for travel. So like if you're traveling to like a toy show to make sure that you're looking for inventory for your indoor playground. As years go on, you do less and less than that. But I do remember my first and second year, I was traveling quite a bit more because I was looking to meet with vendors like face to face, you know. And then under miscellaneous, I guess I bought some stuff for science camp. So like I just put science camp stuff under there. And that was what I had and rounded out my write-offs for this current year. Again, I want to reiterate that this is not tax advice. This is just basically what I was able to write off this year. It could be different for you. It might not always be the same for everybody, and it really just depends on your state as well, because there's different things that you can do in different states. Talk to your tax professional. Some of that stuff, though, I kind of felt like was really obvious things. You know, if you're using it for your business, then it definitely is something that you have to make sure that you keep good track of, and that way you can turn it over to your tax professional, and they can look into seeing about getting it written off. Okay? All right. Hopefully that helps you a little bit. Gives you a little bit more insight on the tax side of things, and hopefully you have a successful tax season. I know it's very, very stressful. I will talk to you next time.